evening and welcome to TiVi Tuần-san News of the Week. My name is Emma Doe. In today's news, how Vietnamese Americans voted in the US elections, the first Vietnamese American woman elected to US Congress, and 200 inmates escape from a drug rehab center in Vietnam. To today's top story, Donald Trump has been elected President of the United States in a win that has shocked the world. World leaders have congratulated Mr. Trump, with Australia's Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull last night reinstating the strength of US and Australian ties. In a number of statements posted to Twitter, the Mexican Prime Minister also congratulated the US, but refrained from directly mentioning Mr. Trump himself, who has described Mexicans as rapists and murderers during his election campaign. While the Vietnamese government has yet to make an official statement on the president-elect, the question remains as to whether the US, under Mr. Trump's leadership, will counter Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. Back in the US, insights into how the Vietnamese American population voted are surfacing. 4 days before the election, the biggest Vietnamese newspaper in America conducted an online survey. It showed that 52% of its readers would vote for Hillary Clinton, 42% would choose Donald Trump, while the remaining percentage would choose neither candidate. The Người Việt survey engaged just over 3,800 respondents. A prominent Vietnamese American lawyer and philosophy professor predicted that the majority of young Vietnamese Americans would support Hillary Clinton, while older, middle-class and conservative Vietnamese Americans would lean towards Trump. In an interview with the Vietnamese website Zing.vn, the San Jose-based professor said the Vietnamese American vote in California had changed from largely Republican to Democrat since the community arrived 40 years ago. He cited Vietnamese children born in the US as a reason for the shift, noting that young Vietnamese Americans care more about social welfare, gender equality, women's rights, and immigration policy. US Democrat newcomer Stephanie Murphy has made history as the first Vietnamese American woman elected to Congress. Murphy won the seat for Florida's 7th congressional district, capturing just over 51% of the total votes. The 38-year-old businesswoman and professor will replace Republican John Mica, despite only starting her campaign this past June. Her victory was a result of strong numbers in Orange County, where she carried 21,000 votes. Murphy is a former National Secretary Specialist in the Office of Secretary of Defense and is a progressive Democrat who says she will bring new ideas to Washington. Her areas of focus include improvements on gun control, LGBTQ rights, and women's issues. As a young female challenger of mixed ethnicity and an immigrant background, her win over a white male politician symbolises a major shift in District 7. Over to news in Vietnam. Around 200 inmates have broken down the walls and escaped from a drug rehabilitation centre in Vietnam's southern province of Bà Rịa, Vũng Tàu on Wednesday morning, according to local media. It's the second time a breakout has occurred in the country this week, and the third time the breakout has happened at the same centre this year. State-run online newspaper VN Express reports about 200 inmates escaped from the Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu Education and Vocational Training Centre in Tân Thanh District at around 7 AM local time. Police have so far reportedly captured 30 people and are tracking down the rest. On Sunday, more than 160 inmates broke out of another rehabilitation centre in the neighbouring province of Dong Nai. There are an estimated 200,000 drug addicts in Vietnam, many of them heroin users. Under Vietnamese law, homeless drug addicts or any user who relapses after receiving outpatient treatment must receive a mandatory 2-year rehab sentence. Vietnam has successfully produced a combined vaccine against measles and rubella. In an announcement on Tuesday, Vietnam's Ministry of Health said Vietnam would now join the group of 25 countries worldwide capable of producing the antibiotic. It's now the 4th country in Asia able to manufacture the vaccine, following on from Japan, India, and China. The vaccine was made by the ministry's Centre for Research and Production of Vaccines and Biology, also known as Polyvac, with cooperation from the Japan International Cooperation Agency. Polyvac's director told the media that the measles rubella vaccine had been tested on 756 healthy people aged between 1 to 45 and had met safety requirements. According to local media, Vietnamese children are expected to receive the vaccine free of charge from 2017. The country is aiming to eliminate measles and put an end to rubella. Vietnam's visa process will be streamlined for tourists in a move to digitise applications. The Vietnam National Tourism Administration said it will grant electronic visas to international tourists from early next year. At a press conference held in Hanoi, VNAT said the e-visa system will be issued on a trial basis in between 2017 and 2018. Following 2018, all procedures, including applications, fee payments and process updates, will be carried out online. Tourists will have their visa application reviewed and granted within 3 days, and the visa will be valid for 30 days. The VNAT chief said the decision would make life easier for those travelling to Vietnam. It brings the country one step closer to others in the region that already have favourable policies towards tourists. VNAT data counted over 7.94 million international arrivals last year, with most travellers coming from China, South Korea, Japan and Taiwan. Cải Lương singing star Úc Bạc Lang has passed away at the age of 81 at her home in Ho Chi Minh City after battling cancer. Lang, whose real name was Đặng Thị Hai, was born in 1935 in the Mekong Delta province of Long An. She became a bright star in the 1950s and 60s and was dubbed the Melancholy Lady for her beautiful voice when singing Cải Lương. Cải Lương is a traditional performing arts form that became popular in southern Vietnam in the early 20th century. An Irish energy firm has signed a $2.2 billion deal to build and operate 3 wind farms in Vietnam, as the Southeast Asian country looks for new energy sources to meet souring demands. The deal, which marks the first large-scale investment in Asia, was announced on Monday during a visit to Vietnam by Ireland's president. In a statement, the company behind the deal said the 3 wind farms will have a combined capacity of about 940 megawatts of power. China and Vietnam concluded a 3-day joint patrol mission in a common fishing zone in the Beibu Gulf on Wednesday, according to China's official Xinhua news agency. In a statement released by the China Coast Guard, both sides completed a series of scheduled tasks. This included a joint patrol, rescue exercise, and examination of fishing boats. The two sides also discussed law enforcement and visited each other's ships. This is the second joint patrol between China and Vietnam for 2016, having completed one patrol in April this year. The Vietnamese government has decided to scrap plans to build nuclear power plants with Japanese and Russian assistance. A Vietnam electricity official announced on Wednesday that contracts to build nuclear power reactors in Ninh Thuận province will be withdrawn after the ruling Communist Party told authorities in October to revise plans due to state finances. The decision will be a blow to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's administration, which sees Japan's export of nuclear power technology as a pillar of his economic growth and strategy. According to the Vietnam electricity official, Vietnam's policy of promoting nuclear power remains unchanged. A 54-year-old man has been charged with stabbing to death a Vietnamese immigrant in Perth 27 years ago. 62-year-old Nguyen Van Phan, and father of 8, was found dead on a walkway linking Wellington Street to McIver Railway Station in central Perth on November 23, 1989. Vincenzo Carlo Marotta from Claremont was arrested last Wednesday night following a public appeal for information after police launched a new investigation in January. Marotta appeared in Perth Magistrates Court last Thursday and was remanded in custody. He is due to appear in Stirling Gardens Magistrates Court on November 30. Police have alleged that the two men did not know each other and that it was a random attack. The Vietnamese community in Victoria has raised more than $100,000 over the weekend for flood victims in Vietnam. TiVi Tuần-san reporter Van Nguyen has the story.
A fundraising dinner was held on Saturday the 5th of November to help raise money for victims affected by the floods in central Vietnam. Over 500 people attended the function at the Happy Receptions restaurant in Melbourne's suburb of Ascot Vale. The fundraising campaign was organised by Australia's peak body representing Buddhist monks and nuns from various traditions, the Unified Vietnamese Buddhist Congregation of Australia and New Zealand. Venerable Thích Phước Tấn explained the reason behind the event.
Many people have followed news that one after another calamity have hit the central Vietnam. Now every year this have come about in a different location, but the three of the provinces in central Vietnam have hit twice, man-made and natural disaster. So we think that the suffering are very extensive for the people.
Since Vietnam's first flood in mid-October, the Buddhist congregation has been meeting urgently to plan ways to support Vietnam's flood victims. Dr. Phạm Phúc Nhân, who is part of the fundraising committee, said that the central provinces still have not recovered from the environmental disaster in which tens of millions of fish died along Vietnam's central coast in April.
Formosa is a steel company in Hà Tĩnh, Formosa caused a very big damage to all the person in there. About 1 million person suffer from intoxication and very big, the massive amount of killing of fish. So they have a disaster for them.
Venerable Thích Phước Tấn says the money raised will be sent directly to the victims of the flood.
This kindness is proving. Sometimes we can verbally express, we love people or we kind to people, but we need to do something also. So tonight is proving that the people are not only verbally say that they pity for the victim, but they did show real action, what we can do to make a contribution.
Vietnam's flooding comes just 2 weeks after flash floods caused by a tropical depression hit the country's central Quang Binh and Hà Tĩnh provinces. The previous downpours in mid-October killed more than 30 people, inundated over 100,000 homes and left tens of thousands of people displaced. Van Nguyen, TiVi Tuần-san.
Meanwhile, the Vietnam's Department of Natural Disaster Prevention and Control said earlier this week that floods in Vietnam's central highland and southern provinces have left 15 people dead, 6 missing and displaced thousands. In a report, the department said flooding from very heavy rain brought by cold air and a tropical low pressure system last week have blocked roads, destroyed more than 200 houses and inundated more than 40,000 other houses in 12 provinces. The report also said that a combined 12,000 hectares of cropland were flooded while more than 40,000 cattle and poultry were killed or washed away. That's all from TiVi Tuần-san News of the Week. I'm Emma Doe. Thank you so much for your company.